you're going to have to pay a price to be in law enforcement. It's okay not to be okay, but it's not a period. It's a ... You just can't stay that way. You got to do something to get back up. Life's going to knock you down, but you got to get back up.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Juan Cephas from Fit PD, and this is Lineup with Fit PD. You know, I was in law enforcement for almost 30 years, and I retired as a police sergeant. During that time period, I had a second job. That second job was to train police personnel at the academy. And I've been doing that job still today for 24 years. During that time period, I've met some amazing people. People that warrant our listeners to meet as well. Well, today's guest is one of those people. Today's guest has a powerful blend of law enforcement experience as well as clinical expertise. As a law enforcement officer, he went up the ranks to the rank of captain in La Mesa Police Department, where he led troops at various supervisory positions. Currently, he is a clinical psychologist where he provides the help and serves those who serve us. He is the clinical director of Focus, where they focus on helping first responders navigate and deal with some of the stressors and trauma, unseen trauma on the job. But he's not just a psychologist, he's also a trainer. His training, he's dived into it deeply. He helps the DA's office, recruits at the police academy, first responders in San Diego County and beyond, and in-service senior personnel. We're going to be talking about a topic that we shy away from in law enforcement and in the first responder community, which is really some of the effects that this job has on us, and we don't talk to anybody about it. I want to welcome Dr. David Bond.
Thank you. Wow.
Dr. Bond, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
I appreciate you being here because this discussion is long overdue, and I think our listeners really will benefit from this. So, let's just get started.
All right, let's do it.
I want to hear a little bit about, your experience in law enforcement. So, as I mentioned, you spent 27 years with La Mesa.
Yes.
And, as you're going up through the ranks, at some point you're thinking about wellness because you ended up going into psychology. And what are you seeing in La Mesa as you're growing there for 27 years?
Yeah, well, as I was growing up in La Mesa, I was a take a concrete pill and harden up kind of guy. I didn't attend to peer support. I didn't attend to debriefings, diffusings. I was looking for drug investigations, guns, regional auto theft task force, auto theft, that type of thing. But all throughout there, we had a woman there. She was a civilian named Maxine Lynch, and she was always behind the scenes with our peer support, doing our debriefings, diffusings. And it wasn't really until I became a lieutenant, and I was pretty much voluntold, you're going to take the peer support lead on this.
Okay.
The one who got lieutenant got promoted. He was overseeing it. He became the captain. And he said, you're going to do it. And I said, frankly, I don't want to. I said, I'm doing SWAT. I'm doing all these other things. I don't really have any interest in that. And he said, I get that, but I think you'll do well at it. And I, as I do with most things, I dove right in. And as I quickly learned what I didn't know, I I realized how ignorant I was, plain and simple, about the whole person, especially me and the people around me. And one of the things that really got me to the position that I'm in now is I volunteered at this place called the West Coast Post-Trauma Retreat. Okay. 6-day residential treatment. It's up north. It was in Inverness at the time, California. And that is 6 days, 6 nights residential treatment. They take about 6 or 7 clients, and these people were struggling. Police, fire, some military folks struggling, some very suicidal, but really struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder. And as that week progressed, I saw people that were, I would call, hopeless. And by midweek, there was hope. People started to become who they maybe were before they got into law enforcement or fire service or the military. And about that time, I said, you know what? That's something that I think I'd like to do after my career in law enforcement. And I basically started, I didn't have any education, well, very little education, and I just started going back to school at that time and then continued on to be where I'm at now. It took me quite a while to go through because I was doing part-time graduate work on there because I was still working, 40, 50 hours in law enforcement a week, and then classes, and then what's called practicums where you do supervised hours with more senior clinicians. In order to get licensed, you have to have so many thousands of hours to get that. So that's kind of the progression, what got me there. And like I'd like to say is I was just ignorant. And the more I learned, the more I realized how much I didn't know.
Dr. Bond, I'm listening to you and I'm wondering, what did you hear at this retreat? I recall a retreat for military and first responders. What did you hear that really made you connect, that you saw that there's the need for these type of services in our profession?
Up until that time, in my limited space there, I had never really seen, I knew they were out there, but I'd never really seen firsthand and sat with them in groups and in individual settings. Officers, we'll just talk with officers right now, officers in such a state that they felt hopeless. I've seen officers having bad days, bad weeks, bad months, but I'd never, and experienced it myself, but never seen it to the point where I remember in one group setting with the staff, they said, okay, we have to watch this person. We can't leave him alone because he's severely suicidal and we can't leave him alone. And that was a shocker. So that was one thing, and I went, wow. And I remember one of the cops there who was awesome. His name was Mike. He goes, "Yeah, welcome to the bigs." And that is one thing that really stuck out in my mind. And one of the officers there was also a doctor. He was also a psychologist and a PsyD, which is what I am. And I didn't even know that was possible at the time. And so where one man goes or one person goes, other will follow. That's what I looked at. I'd never even heard of that before. And he was a full-time officer, but he'd also gone back and got his degree. And that got me moving. His name's Joe Fay, and he's still up there as far as I know. I haven't talked to him for a couple of years, but he's still up there doing that. And that really pushed me towards, or guided me towards, moving in this direction as I left La Mesa and then began this career.
Now, Dr. Bond, you mentioned that you had never seen an officer in that state of mind.
No.
And, I'm thinking that most of us have not seen a cop in that state of mind. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's because we've become masters at masking our pain.
Wow, you really said a mouthful there. Cops are awesome at, it's very hard to judge their insides by their outsides. They are awesome at shutting it down, whoosh, handling the business and going forward. And as I look back to my career and some of the people that I did work with, they were awesome at that. They were probably feeling hopeless, helpless. but they were just very good at hiding it, very good at protecting that. And they protected it with what cops often do: alcohol, overtime, anger, sex, porn, gambling, retail therapy, all those things that cops have been doing since the dawn of time, maladaptively to push those feelings away. And that's something that I've noticed and experienced and helped officers and firefighters do for the last 9 years being here at Focus.
Now, you mentioned also that you worked in SWAT and worked some investigative assignments that like narcotics.
Yes.
Sometimes when you're working in like a special weapons and tactics teams, you get to see a lot of traumatic things. And thinking back in those assignments, were there possibly, because you were a young officer at the time and you weren't, in that position to become a psychologist yet, but you weren't thinking about it. But looking back, were there situations maybe personally or that you saw with your peers where there were certain things that were seen and people were kind of like not talking about it and just acting like they never happened?
One that comes to mind is we had I was in detectives, and we had I think I was a co-case agent. I wasn't the lead at this time. I think I was just one of the co-case agents, but it was a double homicide, suicide, all involving law enforcement. And it ended up being someone from up north was married to a female, and then that female was working with another male, and they were estranged for, I think, over a year or two. But anyhow, it ended up the man came down from the L.A. area, shot and killed both of them, one of them on the 911 call. And
wow.
It was a little convoluted, but ultimately during the shooting, the female was able to dial 911, and then we listened to her basically beg for her life. And so he shot her and then shot himself on 911. And part of my job was to listen to that. And I had to listen to it to figure out what the timeline is and what happened, who he shot first, and really get all the details in there. And for me, it was another homicide. I probably, over the course of being in detectives, maybe I think 7 or 8 homicides, not a lot, but okay. 7 or 8, a case agent on a few of them, and then seeing obviously some in patrol, but they don't happen that much in La Mesa. So it was just another homicide. And I remember a significant time at the scene when I was going through the male victim's vehicle out front, and his command staff, I was just doing my job, and I looked up and I saw his command staff staring at me. And I thought, wow, that was the first time it hit me. This is a cop, and this is their brother. It's not just a job to them. This is their thing. So that caught me off guard. And then for about 3 weeks after that, I was very hypervigilant. Every night I'd be walking the perimeter of my little house. I had like a 900 square foot house, me and my wife, and I'd take my gun out and walk around the perimeter. I couldn't sleep at all. And I thought I was going crazy. I thought it was just me I still give 2 people props to that. I'm not going to name them because I didn't ask their permission.
Sure.
But an officer think of an officer who's just the rock, solid. Nothing phases him. When he showed up for cover, you knew you were going to be safe, that guy. And a dispatcher who the world could fall apart and she'd still be calm, cool, and collected. So think of those type of people. And and they were at the scene, and she was on the radio when that happened. And I remember walking into dispatch, and they were talking about it. And I remember the rock, this solid guy that nothing bothers him. He goes, I heard him saying, I haven't been able to sleep the last couple of weeks. And the dispatcher's like, yeah, I'm really struggling too. And right then I went, whoa, it's not me. It's just, that might be normal. So that was my first glimmer of there was a normalcy that you didn't have to be perfect. You didn't have to be totally in control all the time. And actually that was the first time that I did what's called EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And that, I won't say it saved me, but it was very effective for me. And what I learned in that incident was it wasn't really the investigation. It wasn't the staff looking at me. That guy looked like me.
Oh.
The guy that got shot, he looked like me. And maybe in an earlier part of my life, between marriages, married to the same woman 34 years now, but had a relatively brief marriage, but had 2 good kids out of it right before law enforcement. I dated and whatnot, but that could have been me. And that feeling of helplessness because he couldn't get to his gun before he got shot in the head. And and through EMDR, that came up. So it wasn't the call, it wasn't the screaming, it was that looked like me, and he felt, and the helplessness feeling came up. That's what was really affecting me. So it was an eye opener. And then I just pushed it away and went on with my business until I became the lieutenant of peer support. So I kind of I handled it. It was over, moving on. And that's what I find in moving forward now, the 24 clinicians that work here at Focus. That's what I find, the ones that really bother, that hang on for these critical incidents, they come in kind of 4 categories. Oh my God, I thought I was going to die. If you really thought you were going to die or get seriously injured, that looked like me or mine. Mm-hmm. It reminded me of me, or maybe my sister or my brother, my mother. We tend to hang on to that a little longer. The ones that we feel it's unexpected. And my example would be, you heard 60-year-old CPR status and you show up and it's a 6-year-old. And then the last one is you felt helpless. Okay. And those are the ones I tell officers in training. If you experience any of those 4, I call them the big 4, spend a little more time on that one. These are all abnormal, critical incidents. Most people only experience 1 or 2 in their life. Cops experience, 1 or 2 before lunch sometimes, right?
Sure.
But when those come, oh my God, I thought I was going to die. That looked like me or mine. Unexpected, and feelings of helplessness. Spend a little more time on that. Take a little more time, because it may have affected you more than you think it did. And you can't just mash that away or let it go like some of the other ones. So I kind of dipped into what I do now. But that was my first taste of, wow, clinicians aren't scary. Clinicians can help. Clinicians know way more than I do. Not better than I am, not worse than I am. They just know a little bit more about how to manage the brain a little bit, manage the mind.
Dr. Bond, I want to revisit the rock in this dispatcher.
Yes.
You mentioned how the incident affected you, but sometimes incidents may affect people, but not in the same way. Is that correct?
Correct.
So now, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but like the rock and the dispatcher were probably affected in some different way.
Yeah.
And I just want to bring that up because sometimes officers respond to calls, and one officer is the shooter, the other one's not the shooter. Somebody else was just arriving, seeing what's happening, and all 3 are affected, yet they played a different role. And yet sometimes officers don't understand their feelings. Is that something there?
I think you're absolutely right. And it doesn't necessarily mean, so if 4 officers or 3 officers experience the same incident, like you just mentioned, one is a shooter, one is a witness, and one just showed up at the scene, it doesn't necessarily mean the shooter is going to have any issues with it. They may feel justified in doing it. This law enforcement, it's the only civilian job I know that you but society expects you, if needed, to use reasonable force, up to including killing someone,
right,
to solve the problem. I can't do that as a therapist. Get better. I can't use. No one can use violence on there, but society says, hey, we understand that you may have to do that. So oftentimes officers they feel good about it. No officers I've ever met want to hurt someone or kill someone, but they're willing. They know that's part of the job that they signed up for. And then the other person who witnessed it, they may feel a sense of something other, that even though they didn't shoot or they didn't use deadly force, they may feel a certain way about it, positive or negative, and the person showing up, they may feel that as well. So it can be the same incident, but since we're all human beings, we're all raised differently, we all have our different likes and dislikes and our buttons, any given incident can really affect an individual in a totally different way. That if you put 3 officers that got in a shooting, one might go, best job ever, didn't want to do it, but I'm glad I'm alive. The other one, I don't know if I can do this job anymore. And the other one maybe doesn't have any feelings about it. It's just moving along. So it's not the incident. I found, especially in the 9 years I've been working at Focus and then with peer support, it's not the incident, it's our narrative about the incident that really can have the negative or positive effect on how we feel about it. And when you talk about The Rock, and I mean that in a very positive way, I still see him and I still see the dispatcher, and they talk about it. We've talked about it again, and I always credit them. I say, man, that really was helpful because it pushed me towards getting EMDR. And I came back and told them about EMDR, but I didn't push. So I don't know what they did with that.
Okay.
They seem now, after years and years, that they've made peace with it, and that's pretty typical. Bad things happen. They hurt real bad. They hurt real less, and they go into long-term memory most of the time. It's just normally what I found, those big 4 that I talked about, those are the ones that sometimes get stuck. And they need extra talking, extra some kind of work, maybe a distance from the job for a period of time, but they need a little something extra to make that happen.
Okay.
Does that make, I kind of went off on a...
No, that's
okay.
We're good.
Okay.
We're right where I think we should be.
Okay.
Now, when officers are dealing with stuff, even though and I'm going to revert back to a shooting, even though you weren't the shooter, you should still seek out, in my opinion, you should still seek out some kind of assistance, maybe guidance, because some of us sometimes feel some of these unspoken feelings, negative feelings, and it could still be beneficial. Am I correct?
You're absolutely correct. And here's the thing: is it's almost like prophylactically. Hey, I'm not sure I'm feeling one way or another on this. I'm not sure if it's bothering me or not. And sometimes just doing a checkup. This is a very abnormal job. Even in today's society, shootings don't occur that often. And you still can go through your entire career likely not get involved in a shooting. So it's still very unusual. But if you're part of it, and that's why we do critical incident stress debriefings after. San Diego PD is awesome at it. A lot of agencies in the county are awesome at it. They're recognizing when you get people together within a couple days and you talk about it, all people that were involved, not looky-loos, not the people blocking traffic, but the people that are actually involved in it. So you don't traumatize someone that hasn't experienced what they've already experienced. When you fill in all the pieces, when you normalize the emotions and thoughts that may occur, that tends to be really helpful for the officer's mind to go, okay, well, that makes a lot more sense. And I'll give you an example of that. And again, I'm not going to, he's given me permission to share the story, but I'm not going to give the name, is back. And this is back in La Mesa. This officer was a really solid officer. He responded to a non-breather baby. Got there, mom immediately threw the baby in his arms, and he started doing CPR. Now, I've never done CPR on a baby. I know how to do it. Most of the time, you can go your whole career and never do CPR on a baby, even though every 2 years you learn how to do it. But it's different than regular CPR. So he's doing what he remembered, doing the little puffs and everything, and paramedics show up. He passes the baby on to them. They take it to the hospital, and it doesn't make it. The child doesn't make it. And you can imagine what he thought. I killed the kid. Didn't know how to do it, blah, 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 blah. or I let the child die. Maybe not I killed it, but I did it wrong. And after the debriefing was in a couple of days. So that's what he's feeling the next day or 2 or 3, whenever. And when the briefing got there, he's sharing these feelings. Yeah, I'm sure I screwed something up or the kid would be alive, right? Cops and firefighters and paramedics, they hold a lot of responsibility on things that are totally out of their control. We do, or we did, and probably still think about it. And when he was able to share that in that group, the paramedics were there, and the paramedics were like, "Officer, unfortunately, we've been to a lot of baby deaths." This was a very senior paramedic, and he goes, "That kid was dead. It was dead when you gave it to us, and he was probably dead for well over an hour. There's nothing anyone could have done to keep that child alive." And the stress level that dropped from that officer, knowing that, and I always think about if he hadn't gone to that debriefing, and they're voluntary, most of them are voluntary. If he hadn't gone, he hadn't heard that. What would his life been carrying that quote unquote guilt of killing a child or not doing enough to save a child? So that's where these debriefings can be very helpful, filling in those puzzle pieces and normalizing the feelings that come up.
Well, you bring up not attending one of these meetings because they're voluntary. And I was going to ask you, what have you seen when people opt out? And then they, what can happen, worst case scenario? What have you seen?
Well, the critical incident stress debriefings, they're not a panacea for everything. They don't keep, or at least the Mitchell, Dr. Jeffrey Mitchell, who came up with that, he says, this doesn't keep PTSD away.
Sure.
And I think he has to say that, but I've seen it help quite a bit. Again, fill in the pieces, normalize that, and allow people to share things that they wouldn't ordinarily share. And when people don't do that, they don't get that filling in the blanks. They don't get that normalizing of feelings. I found often that people that were in the group will go and talk to the people. Hey, what happened? Why weren't you there? Oh, it was pretty good. Now, there's a confidentiality there, so they only share what they experienced in the group, not what other people talked about. And we sometimes, hey, I didn't go to that debriefing, but I'd like to meet with you in person. We'll get counsel, our therapist will get that. Hey, I end up not going, and sometimes for righteous reasons. You know, they already had something scheduled with the family, and they'll come back and they'll get the normalization of they won't get filling in the blanks as much, but they'll get the normalizing the feelings and the experiences. So they get that. But I think that especially because it's like-minded people experience the same or similar thing coming together, and sometimes there's tears, sometimes there's anger, sometimes there's still disbelief. But when you're seeing someone across, and we're seeing someone across talking and going, wow, that person, not unlike that with The Rock and the Best Dispatcher.
Right.
When I'm like, you guys have been having a problem? Holy mackerel. And I can tell you the weight, it didn't go all the way, but the weight of me thinking I was crazy whoosh, went right down. And I think that that's what happens in that group setting as well on there. And I had that's kind of a funny story. On one of the debriefings, long time ago in La Mesa, this guy, now that time it was mandatory. Our chief made it mandatory. It was relatively new. We wanted people there. I don't think it's the best way to do it, but it was mandatory. And this guy came in, he goes, I'm here because I'm being ordered to do it, but I'm not going to participate. And as cops do, he took his chair and sat in the corner facing the wall, And he sat through the whole thing, didn't say a word. Got done, came up to the presenter, which was the civilian, her name's Maxine Lynch, and said, thanks a lot. I really got a lot out of that, even though, because he took in all those things, even though he was being contentious and, you know, cops don't want to do what they're told to do, right?
Right.
But he still got a lot out of it. And I always laugh at that because I think that's just hilarious. Even though you're trying not to get anything out, he still got something out of it. So
that's amazing.
I thought it was good, but I can't say enough about these debriefings, and props to everywhere in the county. San Diego PD, they do something a little different, and they do what's called peer support, but OIS peer support. So the only way that you get on OIS peer support is if you were involved in a shooting or you had an on-duty death. And because there's a different process for that. And there's some that are just, actually all of them are dynamite at it, but some are just original. They're OGs and they know exactly what to do. So you have this brand new officer that's never been involved in a shooting. And then you have someone that says, this is what's likely to happen. People fear the unknown. And so this really helps them with paving what the process is in an officer-involved shooting and let them know what's going to happen. Yes, you're a suspect in the shooting per that. And don't take offense to it. This is just a process, and this is things that you might likely. And these people they've already have lived experience with it. So I think it's awesome. And I'll be honest with you, when I first came on board at Focus and I heard about that, I was thinking about my peer support, and I'm like, you could probably just put it all together. I don't know why you guys are doing that. And that's I'm a believer now. I think it's been very helpful for officer-involved shootings and on-duty deaths, but definitely officer-involved shootings, having these people that have experienced that to come and share their wisdom. And it's not always in the critical incident stress debriefing. It's normally at the scene because they respond at the scene for the shooters.
Right.
And then they're with them and they have them to call and reach out to or text with any questions. And it lowers down the stress for the officers. And I think that's very helpful.
What I know of it is very helpful. And I'm thinking back to a time when we had peer support, but some people didn't benefit from it. I'm thinking about an incident in 2010, critical incident. And one of the officers that was involved in that incident just wanted to get together with friends or people he knew and drink. And that was how he was going to cope with this incident, was through alcohol. Yeah. And at the time, in 2010, I didn't know exactly how we should cope with it. But because he was somebody that, I was friends with, I participated. And looking back now, and seeing the things that happened post all the drinking, I think it was doing him more harm than good. And so my question to you, Dr. Bond, is, it sounds like getting some kind of peer support that's structured and actually people have the training and the proper procedures for handling situations like that is optimal, not necessarily relying on things that are not proven or things that may be wrong, like alcohol usage. Yeah. What's your opinion, sir?
Well, choir practice, as we used to call it,
it
feels like 1,000 years ago. It might have had its place. And I'm not a teetotaler myself. I don't drink a lot, but I have in the past. I can't say that that's not the case. And frankly, and don't stop me yet because I have a point to this, but it works. The alcohol lowers a lot of things. It relaxes us. It does a lot of things. Too much of any good thing or anything is too much. And what happens, though, is cops are pretty black and white. They, I'll do this and it works, and then they let go of all the other coping skills. And I would say it's never, ever a good long-term coping skill. And some people have a hard time differentiating that. So my boss used to say, a couple extra beers after critical incident, not so bad. 10 beers, too much, those type of things. So the problem being, though, is once you introduce alcohol, and this is the tough part because it does, I think it's anywhere from 5 to 10% of officers will become what's basically determined alcoholics, or that they have a substance use or misuse disorder. And I think it's up where 15 to 18% of officers will have an adverse incident related to alcohol. That's a lot. That's a lot that's a lot to have to roll those dice.
Right.
And so that's where I argue, or I would suggest that going down that path is risky. It may feel good if you and I are buddies and we come over and we over a couple beers, you share what was going on. It relaxes our body. You're a little more open. The walls go down a little bit, and then you can share maybe how scared you were.
Sure.
How helpless you felt to a person that you trust. And that might be due to the alcohol, a little liquid courage. That's probably okay. You were able to offload those emotions, and I'm a big believer of offloading those emotions after incidents. Bleed off that stress. Don't hang on to it. The problem being, though, is I don't want to say cops are cops, firefighters are firefighters, but man, 15%, 15 to probably 20%, you have some kind of adverse incident that you might not be able to come back from. This isn't just looking stupid at a party. This is a DUI. This is a fight after alcohol. This is a domestic violence incident. You might not be able to come back from something like that. So it's like, which would you rather take? You want to roll the dice on that, 15 to 20%, or do you want to try at something that we know is adaptive coping, which is being brave and talking to a close friend, talking to a trusted spiritual leader or chaplain, talking to someone at home that can tolerate it, or talking to someone like Focus, so a clinician. And when I say like Focus, I mean culturally competent clinicians. There's a lot of clinicians out there, and I train. I'm one of the trainers there at Focus, and I make sure that all of our clinicians understand law enforcement. Not all of them are cops. We have some cops, we have some firefighters, lifeguards, and some military folks, but make sure that they understand the law enforcement community, the firefighting community, the emergency service community. Very important to have that, or you might end up going off on a tangent that you don't want to go off with a clinician that has no idea what emergency services life is like. So that the alcohol, there's a big risk. I think there's a big risk. And I will tell you, we were talking before we started today about suicide. And I don't remember the exact stats here, but I think it's in the 90s. 90% of officer suicides have to do those. There's some kind of alcohol or drugs on board. Lowers the inhibitions. It keeps you in the here and now. You're not thinking about tomorrow, right?
Right.
I'm not going to lie. I've drank, and you just think about now and having fun, and you might say or do things that you wouldn't ordinarily do. And when you're feeling really depressed and there's no other options, sometimes that's what happens. That makes sense that alcohol or drugs are involved in so many suicides with officers.
Especially when you're already experiencing some mental health issues.
Yes.
Now, Dr. Bond, what about triggers? Because sometimes we don't even know that we're suffering from mental health issues, and the first people to identify that we are probably family members.
Yeah.
Because you're getting triggered at home, you're getting triggered at work. What do you have to share about triggers?
Yeah. Well, when you bring up family members, they are, and I'll use an old guy saying, canary in a coal mine. Way back when, they'd bring canaries down in coal mines because they had the tiny little lungs, and when the canary fell off dead, you run for the exit because something bad's coming right away. So it was that little beginning, that little signal saying bad things are happening. And family members, very brave when they say, I think you have a fill in the blank. I think you have a problem with alcohol. I think you have a problem with work. I think you have a problem with anger. I think you have a fill in the blank. Very hard for family members to say that. And I tell my officers, I tell firefighters, perk up and listen, because that took a lot of guts. And when you talk about triggers, or we talk about buttons, we talk about that, I'm of the mind that before you became a police officer, we're going to just stick with cops here, but it applies with firefighters as well. Before you ever got sworn in and said, I'll defend, I'll protect, you learned how to tolerate some really nasty stuff before you ever got sworn in. And now that might have been the military. That might have been the job you did before that. But I tend to think it goes all the way back to childhood. I don't find when I poll people in classes, when I'm talking to people sitting across from them in a therapy session or any other areas that I'm talking to people, they don't have bubble wrap childhoods, most of them. And some of them have loving, kind parents, but something happened. Something happened that made them be able to tolerate this really nasty business of law enforcement, of fire service. It's tolerate things that other people don't see. It's a very abnormal job, law enforcement. Again, you see things that other people just don't see. They once or twice in their lifetime maybe, but you see them every day. Man's inhumanity to man. And so I think that sometimes, and that's a double-edged sword, when you become a police officer, that can be a strength because you can tolerate that, but it also is a challenge because it pushes that button of what happened to you maybe when you're a child or a young adult. And when you start to recognize that, when you start to notice your buttons, helpless, I brought that up for mine, helpless or worthless or fear of failure or something like that. Now you can recognize, and this is emotional intelligence, I can recognize it. I don't have to get angry. I don't have to drink. I don't have to overwork. I don't have to fill in the blank. It's just in here and I can do something about it. And that's what we do in sessions all the time is it's not out there. It's not that person. It's not that person. It's in here. And then you can do something about it. So that's part of the therapy process is looking within, not looking without to solve your problems. So does that make sense with the buttons and the triggers?
Sure.
And it's I wish someone, and that's what I do in trainings in the academy. That's in the mental health one. Talk about buttons, and normally I'll talk about it through anger. Anger is always a secondary emotion, unless something's coming to kill you right then. There's normally a fear. The primary emotion is some kind of fear, and there's hundreds of them. And when you can dial that in, when you start to get angry, annoyed, frustrated, whoop, what fears? Oh, is it that? Yep, there it is. And now I can do something about it. I don't have to flip someone off in traffic. I don't have to get angry at my boss. I don't have to go off on a citizen. I don't have to yell at my spouse or get angry at that. I can just go, oh, it's that. And then you challenge it. Is that true? No, it's not true. I'm awesome. I'm amazing. I'm strong. I'm confident. And then you can do it. But it takes a lot of work. I'm saying it like it's easy, but it's not.
Sure. Anything worth having, anything worth doing takes a lot of work.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. When I think about people wanting to change, you have to do something. If you want to be different, you got to do different. I remember Jordan Peterson. He's a clinical psychologist from Canada. He's written several books, but I remember one of his quotes, and I'll probably butcher it, but he talks about if you could wake up in the morning and stop doing that one thing that is holding you back every day, you'd be better off for it. We all have that one thing. If we did less or none of it, our life would be better. It could be procrastination. It could be anything, really. But if you took that one thing away, your life would probably be just a little bit different. And then you take another thing away and another thing away and then add something and add something. But it's not easy. It's not easy. Easy to talk about, easy to say, but it's not easy to do, to make that change.
Not easy to do.
No.
Now, you brought up a little bit about training. We have a lot of recruits that come in from all different walks of life into the police academy. And they haven't experienced any of the trauma associated with the profession. Not yet. Not in the academy.
No.
But you speak to these young people. And what are like some of the top things that you share with them to prepare them for what they may see on the job?
Man, that's a great question. The first thing I do being there is to normalize that there's a possibility that you might go to see a clinician. And I try to normalize that by being human, by talking in their language, not some highbrow language. The second thing I do is share how important it is to take care of themselves. And we talk about sleep, how, it's the foundation of health, and inherently cops don't get a lot of sleep or their sleep's disturbed, but how important it is to take care of themselves. Wherever they go, there they are. And they're responsible for their self-care. And if they're fit mentally, spiritually, and equally as important, I would say emotionally, they're much more better to be able, to address what they're going to be hit with. And I bring up the possibility that they chose this job for a reason. Now, we don't know how long they're going to last in the job.
Sure.
Normally, it's about the 5-year mark. We talked about a 5-year mark being about 10,000 hours, and 10,000 hours, you get to be pretty good at something. When they get past that, they'll probably be cops for a long time. If they don't make it to there, they're not good or bad. They just won't be able to tolerate, maybe, or don't choose to tolerate some of the really tough things that law enforcement experiences. And I say that by saying I wouldn't have traded for life. I wouldn't have traded for anything. I think back to my 27 years, and no matter the good, the bad, and some of the challenges there, wouldn't trade it for a minute of doing something else. I was in the Marine Corps before that, just the reserves, but the Marine Corps, and played contact sports all my life, still playing hockey, still enjoy it. And knowing that law enforcement, even though it's an awesome job, it asks for a price. And I tell them, hey, you may have to, you're going to have to pay a price to be in law enforcement. And the price is losing a little of your naivete, losing a little bit of your optimism, maybe. Mm-hmm. And this is how you get it back. And then I'll talk about work-life balance, making this part of your life, not all of your life. I don't necessarily subscribe to a perfect work-life balance. I think there's always something competing. Kids are sick, sure, going for that promotion, training for a marathon. There's always something that's going to ask for a little bit more. But the goal being work-life balance, that this is a piece, law enforcement's a piece. Your faith is a piece, your family's a piece, your hobby's a piece, your physical workouts are a piece, and to keep that balance. So any one that is a little off kilter, will you have all those other ones to balance it out until it gets back on track. And so we talk about that in the academy. Don't let go of the friends that are non-police officers. I remember a friend of mine from high school, played lacrosse with him, and I'm a little embarrassed to say Dungeons and Dragons, but I'll say it here. But lacrosse and football with him. And I would tell him about 2 years on these funny, hilarious things. How long were you a police officer?
Almost 30 years. Yeah,
almost 30 years. There's some funny things that happen in law enforcement, right? And we were laughing about it in lineup, and I'd go and tell my friend Tom, you never believe what happened. And I'd start to tell him the same story that I told my law enforcement buddies, and this look of horror would come on his face. He's like, David, that's not funny. That's tragic. That's horror. I'm like, okay, there's the line between civilian and law enforcement. But if you need friends like that haven't seen and heard all those things, they're just living their life. They're just doing their thing. And I think you need that balance to pull you back into, frankly, what I call the possibility versus probability land. It's possible in law enforcement, right? Everything's possible. If it hasn't happened to you, yes, you've heard about it. You have to be ready. You have to be on guard. You have to be more vigilant, maybe even hyper-vigilant sometimes. That we're 1% of the population, or law enforcement is. Fire's 1%, military's 1%. The rest of the 97%, they don't experience what you experience. They don't experience what law enforcement does. They're in probable land. They're probably, and like today, I'm probably going to wake up. I have my coffee. I get to hang out with a really good man, and I'm going to go to bed tonight, and nothing bad's going to happen. And I'll bet on that all day long. And the sun's going to come up tomorrow. I'll bet on that all day long. It's probable. So how do you balance that possibility land when you come home to the probability? And that's finding a way to, okay, when I close my locker, bam, I am now, even though if I'm armed still, I'm now a civilian. I'm now a mother. I'm a father. I'm a brother. I'm a boyfriend, a girlfriend. I'm a son. I'm a daughter. Still have my job. Still have law enforcement. But now I'm going into probability land where not everything's dangerous. Not everything's coming to kill me. And finding that balance to do that. So that's what I talk to them about right off the bat. I prep them ahead of time. Now, they have tests to think about.
Sure.
They have all kinds of things going, but at least they've heard it once or twice. The other people come in and talk about other things similar to that. So they get a taste of wellness throughout the academy. And then they get, if it's San Diego PD or some others, they get a wellness day where they get 8 hours of seeing me and seeing the wellness unit and hearing lived experiences from police officers and firefighters that bring this really to light with stories. So normalizing it and saying it's okay. And I guess the finishing of that is it's okay not to be okay, but it's not a period. It's a ... You just can't stay that way. You got to do something to get back up. Life's going to knock you down, but you got to get back up.
So, Dr. Bond, just so I get it straight, what we're talking about is having a balance when you're stuck in the fight or flight syndrome. Is that what we're kind of talking about, or is that a little bit different?
No, I think you're close to that. You're spot on it. It's, well, when you're in the midst of it, fight or flight, your fight or flight kicks in, heart rate goes up, eyes focus in, ears occlude, blood pressure goes up, heart rate goes up. The blood actually draws away from your skin because it's the cuts and the bites and everything. This old caveman, cavewoman stuff. Your stomach stops digesting because who cares what I just ate? I don't want to get eaten. This is old stuff here. In that midst, you want to limit that as much as possible. You want directed aggression like a wrestler or a boxer. They're not angry. They're not in the fight or flight mode. They're in directed aggression. They're thinking 4 steps down the road. They're still thinking with their precognitive portion of their brain. But when you get into that fight or flight, oh my God, I thought I was going to die. That looked like me or mine. Unexpected and helpless. That's the time when you're in the midst of it, you want to get to it. Your mind is basically shutting down. This shuts down and you're just in survival mode. We don't want officers to be there. They don't think very well. They don't make good decisions in that. Force Science actually has some real good, real good, not evidence, but real good studies on that. That because it used to be just because the heart rate goes up, at 150, 170 or something like that, you stop thinking very well. You're not making good decisions. But then he goes, race car drivers,
Sure.
Motocross, some of these other, they're way up there, but they're still making all kinds of decisions. And they found, and you probably know this better than I do, they found it's the training. It's the tactical training. It's specific training. And your heart rate can be way high, but you can still perform perfectly. But that's reps. And reps, perfect reps, doing it again and again and again. So when the real life happens, your mind, it's almost like muscle memory, for lack of a better word. But when you're stuck in that other one, when you're in the fight or flight, and you're not thinking very well, when you're in these critical incidents, there's no crying. There's no emotional stuff. You got to handle your business right then. And I look at it more probably selfishly. If an officer's coming to save me or mine, if they're coming to protect me from bad guys, I'm getting older. I don't want them crying. I don't want them emotional. I want them tactically sound and handling their business. And as soon as it's over, as soon as it's code 4, maybe behind a car, offload, maybe cry, maybe talk to a trusted friend, pull those cars up next to each other, maybe go back to the department and talk to their trusted sergeant or maybe a chaplain, or go home and talk to someone that can tolerate it, but offload that as soon as possible. That's where I found people to be more healthy on that, the fight or flight. That's what tends to help get them out of that, I would call it imbalance, that they're still hypervigilant and they're still seeing that. Their prefrontal isn't connected yet, so it's just threat, body response, threat, body response, threat, body response. And this doesn't kick in saying, brother, that was yesterday. That was 2 weeks ago. Why are we still doing that? So I find that tends to be helpful, offloading that, not storing it inside, mashing it down like it didn't happen, but going, that was kind of scary. I felt helpless. I felt fill in the blank. That tends to offload the pressure. And, maybe grandma or grandpa, a problem shared is a problem halved, right? Secrets lose their strength in the sunlight. those type of things. I agree with that. So that's kind of the thought process on that. How do you counteract that when you do get that fight or flight?
Because if we continue to be in that mode, even after the incident's over,
yes,
even after you go home, from what I understood, and please educate us, is that the body still continues to release stress hormones.
Yeah.
And so now, long term, if we're stuck with, always reliving incidents and always being stuck in this fight or flight mode, can there be like any associated illnesses with that?
There's a book called The Body Keeps Score.
Yes.
And our body tends to hang on to stuff. When the mind isn't doing well, the body will show you. And that's normally through back injuries, shoulder pain, pinched nerves, headaches, things like that, or even deeper, all this cortisol stuff on your heart, on your liver. There's a reason why there's a presumptive illnesses for law enforcement and firefighters, right? They expect you're going to see this stuff, and so it's going to affect you. So yeah, all those things, the body's made in this, we'll call it fight or flight. There's fight, flight, or freeze, and there's fawn, but that's not really necessary to talk about there. But that's when you just submit and try to be, I'll be your best friend, just don't hurt me. That's not really for law enforcement or fire service. But in that fight, flight, that's supposed to be a really short period of time. Again, caveman, cavewoman times. Saber-tooth tiger comes, you pick up the spear and fight as hard as you can, or you run for the hills, and it's, 30 seconds to 2 minutes. That's really all we really need on there. That's not on the long hunts.
Right.
That's that directed aggression. When any kind of contact sport or physical sport, the whistle blows, you try to rip the other guy's head off, right? And the whistle blows again and you stop. That's directed aggression. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about that fight or flight where you dump all the cortisol, the epinephrine and the norepinephrine, the adrenaline kicks in there. Well, if that's constant, that's for short term. If it's constantly happening, it wears and tears on your body. It's like revving an engine and not going anywhere. If you're revving an engine to get around a corner to win the race, awesome. But if you're just revving, that's going to wear down the engine. Something's going to break. And so that's how I look at what you're talking about.
So I'm just trying to put it in context with some of the assignments that I've worked or that I know other people have worked. You work in a, high-speed unit for a decade.
Yeah.
And you're experiencing an adrenaline dump 2-3 times a night.
Yep.
For 10 years.
Yeah.
But you're maybe doing this in your, when you're 25 to 35.
Yeah.
And you're feeling great.
Yep.
Or you think you're feeling great.
Yeah.
And then later on, when you get closer to 45, you're thinking, oh my God, my shoulders, my back,
yeah,
all this other stuff. And it could be associated to just how the body, like you mentioned the book, how the body keeps score.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility.
Yeah. And we don't think of things when we're younger, when we're in our teens or 20s.
Right.
Hell, I don't even think thought I could die until I was 30, right? You just don't think about things like that. But the body keeps remembering. The body keeps remembering. And so if we could have that, again, back to that work-life balance, you work hard and then you give yourself a break. You're not just preparing. You don't just go behind glass and wait for the next critical incident. Maybe you're running hard for those 10 hours or 12 hours. Now, what do you do to lower the temperature on there? So some of the things when you're not doing, some of the things during that time, you can do breathing. You do either box breathing or what I like to call is relaxed muscle state, which was when you breathe in, nice deep breath. And as you breathe out, you notice your body, and whatever's tense, you relax it. You breathe in, notice your body, and relax it. And you do that throughout the day, so your body isn't holding on to that there's a little more to it than that, but that's a great start.
Now, when you say breathing, I think of many of us don't know what breathing even is, because a lot of us don't use our diaphragm to breathe.
No.
And you need the diaphragm.
Yeah. If you were to monitor your breathing throughout the day, it's normally very shallow. And so this is intentful breathing. And so this relaxed muscle state, it's really If you do it 10 times, that's basically 6 seconds to breathe in and breathe out, noticing your body. So if you do it 10 times, 1 whole minute, everybody has a minute in their life. I haven't found it to be very successful 1 minute. It's about 5 minutes throughout the day that I find people really noticing a difference. And this is over the course of time. You know, you have a very, law enforcement has a very stressful job, firefighting as well. But you go above that, as Gil Martin talked about in Emotional Survivor for Law Enforcement, you go above that window of normalcy. You're up in the hypervigilant, and what goes up must come down. And because, again, we're in the possibility land, right?
Right.
You can't come in flat-footed all the time because it's possible that something can happen. So by intentfully breathing throughout the day, that tends to lower down the stress. It brings down the cortisol levels. It brings down all that because you don't notice it. You're used to being in the possibility land, being ready for anything. You sit with your back to the door. You're watching people's hands. You're doing all these things that you have to do, I think, in law enforcement, especially in a high-speed unit. And so how do you counteract that? And I think that's the part that officers tend to forget. And maybe a long time ago we were ignorant of it, but now we're aware. And now I think the time is to start doing things about it, to be able to have more of that balance and to notice it. Don't just wait till you're in your 40s and when things start breaking down and you're getting all kinds of workers' comp stuff and you can't get out of the car as well and you groan like an old man or old woman, right, when you're getting up, is to start to do it now with the expectation that as I offload this stress daily, it's not going to have that effect on me 10 years from now. So then that's just one of them. Another one that can be very helpful, again, hanging out with people that have nothing to do with law enforcement, having hobbies that have nothing to do with law enforcement. You can shoot. I mean, shooting's fine, but having hobbies that when you're doing it, you're totally in the moment. You're completely, utterly in the moment. I told you earlier, I play hockey. Not that good at it, but I have fun. It's a they call it a beer league because it's not, any kind of state sponsored or anything like that, but it's fun. There's some really good guys. They played since they were kids. I didn't. But when I have that hour of time, I'm hanging out with the team. I'm waiting for my time to get on the ice to chase that little puck around and having a ball. And there's nothing before, nothing after. And it can be anything. It could be reading. It could be going to the movies. It could be bike riding. Exercise is always great. But when you have that, like Gil Martin calls it the Eustace from Emotional Survivor for Law Enforcement. I love fishing. Oh, when was the last time you did it? Well, I used to do it all the time. Well, how long? When was the last time you did it? Well, it's been about a year. Something you love, you've stopped doing. So we want to keep doing those things, and officers those things tend to fall off, and it just becomes law enforcement or waiting to go back to law enforcement. And if we can have a better work-life balance and do those things during the day, the breathing, noticing, intentful breathing, and all the other stuff that that I watched podcasts with you, and eating healthy, exercising, building muscle, maintaining balance and strength and everything, those things are all extremely, extremely helpful. I'm just talking about the mental part here, mental and emotional part today.
Now, Dr. Bond, it feels like there's so much more information that we need to cover. But any last thoughts that you would like the listeners to really focus on, especially, our military and first responders community, to ensure our mental health?
Yeah. Long time ago, and we'll take law enforcement, we had wheel guns, right?
Right.
Some people wore vests, some people didn't wear vests, ballistic vests, protective vests. If we think about that now, we think it's crazy, right? We were just ignorant back then. We're not ignorant now. And I would say, as we are recognizing the importance of mind, body, and spirit, it's not just the physical, it's not just the tactics, it's also the spirit. And as we recognize that, I would say take note and start doing things now that fill you emotionally. And I go back to something I said earlier, that it's okay. It truly is okay not to be okay. You just can't stay that way. So that's what I would leave us. There is help. Focus is one of the places in San Diego County, but there's other people that are culturally competent. Find a culturally competent therapist. Reach out to a trusted peer support or a chaplain that can sit down and talk with you. Sometimes all it takes another human being to go, I get you. I get it. And then it's okay that shame that we talked about earlier, I have to be perfect. I'm on this pedestal on there. No, we're just human beings. Sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we don't do it perfect. Sometimes we don't feel good about the things that we've experienced. And it's okay to talk about that. And very often when we talk about it, just talking about it can lower it down and help us move towards a healthier life and being good for the people around us.
Well, Dr. Bond, thank you for being here.
Yeah. Hey,
I appreciate you.
Me. I appreciate it.
You're going to have to come back because I still have questions and there's so much to cover regarding this.
There's
topic.
A lot there, yes. Well, thank you for your time, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Thank you, Dr. Bond.
All right.
And thank you for watching. Please take this topic seriously. There are people that are suffering in silence, and it could be somebody close to you. Reach out to your friends and family. Reach out to somebody if you're feeling bad. If you're feeling suicidal thoughts, 988. You can call that number. If you're not feeling okay, talk to someone. If you see that there are people around you that are not their normal selves and they just went through something possibly traumatic, reach out to them, please. Talk to them. Just let them know you're there. Let them know you're there. Let them know that you're a friend, someone that they can talk to. We're going to continue to explore this topic, and we're going to explore other topics. I'm always listening to your feedback. Please leave comments. Please subscribe. And thank you for watching. We're going to have our brother in Christ, our brother in law enforcement, Greg Admonson, say a prayer to end the episode. He's going to say a prayer for everybody that's out there working tonight, that's working currently, that'll work tomorrow to ensure that we make it home. Thank you for watching.
We come before you with gratitude for the brave men and women who have answered the sacred call to protect and serve. You said in Romans 13, verse 4, that the one in authority is God's servant for your good. Lord, we thank you for every officer who stands the line. We thank you for every officer who runs toward the sound of danger when others run away. We thank you, God, for every officer who brings order out of chaos and who seeks justice with compassion. Father, as warriors in a fallen world, we draw our strength from you. Your word declares in Psalm 144, verse 1, "Blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war, my fingers for every battle." Train our hands, Lord, not only for the battles of the street, but for the battles within. Give us courage when fear whispers. Give us patience when tempers rise. Grant us wisdom when decisions must be made in an instant. Lord, we ask for your divine protection over every officer in the field. Surround them with your angels as a shield, as you promised in Psalm 91. And let your peace guard their heart and mind in Christ Jesus. When they grow weary, remind them that those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. Almighty God, you are our strength. You are our shield. You are our ever-present help in times of trouble. Father, when the day's work is done, bring them home safely. Restore their spirit, renew their joy, and remind them that they do not fight this battle alone. For you go before them, you go beside them, you are with them. In the mighty name of Jesus Christ, our commander and king. Amen.